Okay, we'll call to order this meeting of the MSAD 49 Board of School Directors. Roll call. Booton.
Here. Here.
Okay. Boyden here. Caverly absent. Davis Folsom.
Here.
Dumont.
Here.
Flood absent. Hussey.
Here.
Kinley.
Here.
Kugelmeyer.
Here.
Lambert.
Here.
Reeves.
Here.
White.
Here.
Williams.
Here.
Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. All right, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. There's a flag behind me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
The flag.
of the States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes of the April 16th board meeting.
So moved.
Second that.
Moved by Beth and seconded by Roy to accept the minutes of the April 16th, 2020 board meeting. Booton.
Yes.
Boyden, yes. Davis Folsom.
Yes.
Dumont.
Yes.
Hussey.
Yes.
Kinley.
Yes.
Kugelmeyer.
Yes.
Lambert.
Yes.
Reeves.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Okay, the vote to accept the minutes of the April 16th, 2020 board meeting, 11-0-0. Okay, at this point, we will open the phone lines, which have been open actually for about a half an hour, and take any citizen input on items included on tonight's agenda. So, John, do we have anybody on the phone? Okay, we don't currently have anyone on the phone. We'll give it a moment just in case anybody was dialing when we logged in.
Jenny, can you say how they can find the number if they were interested?
Sure, the number is posted on our website, right with the link to the board meeting. So if they're watching the board meeting, they went past the phone number. Nothing? Okay, we're going to move on. I do want to just touch on one thing under old business. We approved the budget at the last meeting, and yesterday I sent out the FAQs, some FAQs that we had talked about during budget development, and today I sent the fact sheet. So we will get those distributed more broadly after today, because we just finalized those today. And we just want to make sure everyone knows that our goal, as always, is to put forward a budget that provides the highest quality education for the children of the district while taking into account the fiscal resources of our community. And we recognize that we are currently in an extraordinary time with this pandemic and the economic situation that will likely result from this. So we are working together, and we're in contact with the local municipalities as well as state officials to keep on top of what is going on. And we want to make sure those discussions continue. And as we move forward, if people have questions, they should feel free to reach out, and we will do our best to get those answers. Does anyone else have anything under old business? Okay, we'll move on to new business, and the first item is a discussion of the Tier 3 schools. And information came out in your email.
Good evening. Do you want me to start, Jenny, right now?
Assistant Superintendent Patricia Watts is going to talk about both of these items here, our Tier 3 designation of the Benton Elementary School and how that came about, and this idea of a school-wide title identification and how we intend to use our title funds. So Patricia is going to review both of those points here now. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. There are two types of Title I programs. There's targeted assistant and school-wide. Can you hear me okay? You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. As I said, there's two types of programs, targeted assistance and school-wide. Usually you start out with schools start out with targeted assistance, but you can move to a school-wide. You have to have a 40% minimum of poverty level. And in this situation, because Benton was identified as a Tier 3 school, we really didn't have an option to stay at targeted assistance. That was one of the approval. To get approved, we needed to develop a school-wide, and from that they worked on their CNA, which is the comprehensive needs assessment, and we did the school-wide. We submitted it in February and we got approval in March. So if you are a Tier 3 school, you don't have the option. You have to go school-wide. And as I said, 40% minimum poverty level. Benton happens to be 54. And then I've listed the other schools at the elementary schools at what level they're at. So school-wide, the essential components of a school-wide program is serving all students and families, continual student progress monitoring. These are have-tos in a school-wide, and you have to have, so parents can understand it, the format. It needs to be easily accessible, available to schools, district staff, parents, and the public. And school-wide teams must regularly review the plan and revise it as necessary. The school-wide team is composed of teachers, principals, school leaders, paraprofessionals, parents, and community members. And then there is a parent-family engaged. It has to be organized, ongoing, in a timely manner for the planning, review, and improve the school-wide program. School-wide, I've been involved in 2 school-wide programs, one when I was in 54 and Wiscasset, and they really are more flexible. These funds, you can use the funds for staffing, materials, professional development, and you don't have to separate your monies out. It is all combined, and you don't really have to, when you do the application, you don't have to be so specific. Of course, you have your goals, but you don't have to be so specific in what you're going to use your monies for. So with that, as I said, Benton was a tier 3 school, became a tier 3 school. And what that involves is we were targeted with chronic absenteeism. So we received $20,000 from the state, additional $20,000 to do some planning. And we also have, along with that, we had a coach from the DOE that was working with us. Presently, because of this pandemic, she's not been working with us. She's kind of on a leave, and we'll be back hopefully in September. Let's see. I think that is really all. I don't know if you have any questions about. I know the other schools who have been keeping up with their comprehensive needs assessment have also. So we'll know more about that. The application is due in July, and you'll know probably by the end of July if they're accepted as a school-wide. It's a very involved process. It takes about a year to go through the school-wide application. However, we had to fast track with Benton, and as I said, if the schools keep up with their comprehensive needs assessment, then they can, providing that they're at that minimum poverty level, they can apply for school-wide. So I don't know if you have any questions around that or not.
Could I add, Pat? Could you talk a little bit about some of the benefits and some of the programming that you're working on at Benton School? So we had 2 indicators based on, I think everyone received a screenshot of our report cards by school, by district, but by school. So Benton Elementary, as Pat has noted, was identified as emerging in 2 areas: chronic absenteeism and academic progress in mathematics and academic achievement in mathematics. So the progress relates to growth over time for students, and the achievement is just the at-face performance. So Benton had in the past been identified in the area of math for a subgroup, students with disabilities, when the DOE had structured these supports and called it Focus School. And we received monies to support a mathematics coach that we utilized at that school to help with instructional practices and tracking of data, particularly with that subgroup, and tried to lift the performance up because there was a disparity between whole group, whole population, and a particular subgroup. Patricia and principal and the team have worked hard on laying the foundations for some of what that programming looks like in mathematical practices and in an effort to raise student performance. We had also talked about part of the benefit of a school-wide designation. And again, in this case, when we're identified as a tier 3 school, we must engage at that broader level of services. And the benefit is that once the school qualifies, no individual child needs to qualify based on some demographic and information. A single child individually does not have to become eligible to receive title services. So there is a benefit for that. So we have more broad access for our children, and we would very much like to pursue that advantage in our other elementary schools. And Pat is also going to talk about how we're using those funds, or how we intend to use those funds. In the past, last year, of course, we had a great discussion about reading recovery program in particular, and which is an intervention, and it's an intensive intervention with very uh, focused programming and highly specialized interventionists in our reading recovery teachers. And we also provided service for math intervention. And we, a year ago, had the benefit of a math coach overseeing, facilitating data review, management, and the so what's to come from looking at the data, what we can glean from it, and how we can better improve our practices and improve student achievement. I mean, that is the goal, to raise that up. So this year, we entered with our math interventionist working, the two of them working outside of title funding. The public voted to support funding the math interventionists in our local budget. We did lose our math coach, not just the person, but the position itself. We no longer have that. So we're thinking how we can, particularly since the Tier 3 identification is for performance in math, that we look to use our title funds, this federal program, outside of our local budget, outside of our state subsidy, that allows us to get at these very vital services. So we're hoping, once we take a good hard look at the funding that's been allocated to us, that we have some room in there to add additional interventionists, and perhaps that we can't add a math coaching position, that we look to maybe at least add a stipend if we're able to use a portion of that money for stipends. And Patricia's going to get clarification from the state on exactly how we can use that. But part of the federal funding relates to professional development. There's direct services, which is the Title I money, but there's Title II. And we're looking for creative ways to fund that much needed support in our schools, to help the classroom teachers and our students be successful in working together. So that's a piece of it. And Patricia, would you please talk a bit about our use of funds, and that you convene a
Unmute this. I will. I just want to mention a couple more things about school-wide. School-wide will allow you, like with the targeted assistance, if there's any professional development going on, it's only the people that work with the title kids that can receive the professional development. You can only work with those kids that are identified as Title I students. With a school-wide, you can work with any and all children. You can be in the classroom, and if you're working with a child that's at a lower level in reading and another child is having similar issues, you can pull that child into the group. And then as professional development goes, you can plan for the whole school to have professional development. So that's really a really nice advantage of a school-wide. As far as the title monies, these are preliminary figures, and we're going to receive $940,000 in Title 1A. In Title II, we got a little bit less this year, or presumably. It's $135,000 roughly. Title IV, we've received a little bit more in Title IV, and that's 86, almost 87,000 we'll receive there. And Title V, they have not allocated that yet, because I think there's an issue with the federal government and the states, and they weren't going to give us Title V money, and then they decided that they would. Some of the legislators complained, and they decided that they would give us Title V monies. They had some kind of a criteria that didn't think that some schools in the state should get this money, but we are. In speaking with the person that oversees the Title V monies, he said probably it would be about the same. And we received last year 22, almost 23,000 in that. So in Title 1A, I end up, we like they have a 3% increase in their program. So we were paying 252,000, a little bit over that. And then with a 7% increase, I'm sorry, 3% increase, it's about 7,500 for that increase. So that brings it up to about 260,000 that will contract with KV Cap. We have homeless foster care, and that was 30,000. So I used the figures that we had last year because we haven't received from the state the percentages, and we won't receive that until July. So private schools, we a little over 4,000 for the Kennebec Montessori, and the Glen Stratton was around 12,000. So it brings it down. Family engagement was also another 11,000, with schools doing presentations with their parents and involving the children that were just targeted Title I students. So that brings it to about 922,000. And as I said, we are receiving about 940,000. So it gives us a balance of 17,000, almost 18,000 there. Title II, we have a healthy amount there, and that's 92,000 that we will have left there. We pay a pre-K teacher ed tech, and that's 43,000, but that's the only thing that's been targeted so far for that. And then Title IV, we have not targeted anything for Title IV yet. So that's 87,000, which brings it to a grand total left of 219,411,000. So I am in the process of, the application just came about 2 days ago. So I am in the process of writing the grant. And depending on if we get school-wide, we won't have to target all of the monies in specific areas. We can, like I said, put it in one pot and use it the way that people recommend. A lot of the, I met with Title I teachers the other day, and some board member and community people, a community person, and they made some recommendations on what they'd like to see. And a math person was definitely someone that they would like to see. They would like to have more math support. Literacy coaches came up. Reading recovery also came up. But those were the 3 areas that people would like to see the money spent. So I did ask Tara for a printout on what it would be if you had if you hired 2 ed techs, and it comes to about 88,000, and that would include a single subscription for the health. And if those people took health for two adults, it would be about 95,000. So, and there would be enough money for, I believe, a stipend if you're interested in having a stipending a math person. And that's, any questions on that?
Well, if I could just add, particularly with the Title IV, what we've done is we've needed to transfer that into Title I to meet the payroll of our reading recovery teachers, and also the contract that we have with KV CAP. And typically most of our title allocation among the titles is dedicated to supporting the staff that we had, and that has not changed. There are other pieces in the budget that relate to supplies and operational costs of the programming. But the bulk of it goes to supporting the people we employ to do the work. And I don't know about where those final transfers are going to land. And these are just preliminary figures right now, and we'll have a better idea, hopefully, by later this month on what those figures are. And as Patricia mentioned, that she did convene this meeting that include broad group of stakeholders, including teachers involved and administrators and members of the public and member of the board. And also at the conclusion of this, if anyone has any suggestions on how we might use these funds, and again, they are dedicated to particular services, and the idea of title funding in that we are not supplanting programming that already exists. This is supplemental programming, supplemental to the regular education services that the district budget provides for. So understanding that, and the guidelines are very clear, and being careful that we are not supplanting local programming that's already in place. But we'll have a better figure for the board and the community, hopefully by later this month.
Roberta,
Yes.
so I remember last year when we talked about these positions, Jenny, what is the portion that we have to pay for people that fall under the title portion? There's like different allocations for the way that their benefits and yes, can you just mention that again? Because I think that's important for new board members to know. So people that have fall under that, we pay a little bit more, correct, overall for some of their retirement.
Right, exactly. And I don't have that in my head right now, but it's a little more expensive total compensation to have an employee seated in this fund stream.
Right.
I don't have that figure in front of me.
Yeah. I don't have the specific percentages with me either for that, but the way it works is when you have a position, a teacher or an ed tech position who is funded by a federal grant, the district is responsible for the full cost of teacher retirement and the unfunded actuarial liability. Where for a teacher funded in the operating budget, the district is only responsible for a portion of the normal cost of teacher retirement and not the unfunded actuarial liability.
And last year we had a savings while we did, replace, positions that have been eliminated that then we brought back that had been under, was it Title II? Maybe Title II, which I'm trying to remember right, Title I. We ended up putting some of those back into the general budget at a savings because of those benefits, right?
At a savings in the title program because we did not have to fund the UAL portion of retirement.
Right. Yep.
In that, Cara, involved the two math interventionists, the Ed Tech 3s that we pulled out of that funding. And we also added back one reading recovery position. And that is also seated in our local budget this year.
As a last thought, I know, Danielle had done some work around with Brian, and the other names escape me, so pardon my aging memory. Just around kind of conceptualizing math, and it would be interesting for. Obviously, we can't do something in regards to thinking about funding it for this particular year, but for next year to get in front of the board early on, a more comprehensive plan around a math coach, right? Like the numeracy aspect in our district has always been challenging, but it's more challenging, I think, as time goes on. And especially once we are now sort of competing on a global level with STEM. So, getting early interventions are important, and really, up through middle school and somewhere into high school too. So it would be really nice to relook at some aspects of those math programs. And I definitely think for students who may not be inclined for sort of traditional geometry or some of these traditional maths, this was years ago, to one of the Maine School Board Association, like annual meetings, and they had a workshop about like helping students connect with math in non-traditional ways that I felt was very compelling. So one person a student talked about how they had, learned to overcome basically their fear of geometry. They were interested in construction, and they knew they needed to use geometry for a whole host of things. And one was just like how they taught themselves to build steps. Like there were some really compelling elements to that I think we could really be serving our population around numeracy a little bit more creatively. So that would be something that I would welcome. I know, Danielle, do you want to add anything from your discussions?
The only thing that when I worked with Brian, it was just dealing with the tier 3 school and being part of that committee with other community members and staff members. But no, I think so for everyone on the board, I was the board member that was part of the title funding group and part of that meeting. And what I found were the most that I took out of that meeting was the fact that there are still major needs within each individual school and trying to figure out how to fund them. But math, the district needs more math interventionists, because going forward to do district wide, we needed more than 2. So I think that would be, if we can do it with the title funds, then I think that would be a smart move for the district.
To just that we are looking at John Hattie's work. He's done 15 years of research, and he has been involved with 300 million students, and he's written a lot of books on mathematics. And I don't know if you can see that from here, but visible learning from mathematics. Everybody, with the money that we received, everybody received one of these books, and we are doing. Found that interesting, Danielle. And we have also, when they come back in the fall, hopefully, we purchase books at the K2, Teaching Mathematics in the Visible Learning Classroom, Teaching Mathematics in the Visible Learning Classroom for 3-5, K2, and 6-8. We also, John Hattie is coming to Portland 23rd and 25th of September, and everybody was really excited about this, to see him in person, but because of this pandemic, we're going to have to do it remotely. The price is reduced a bit, but it's unfortunate because I think it's better to be on site, but whatever. I just think he has a lot to offer. He's really quite remarkable. I don't know if any of you are aware of him or not, but
Yeah, when you were talking, I held up my book.
oh, you did?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Is that high school?
Yeah, but you know, as part of my job at Colby is about like knowledge transfer and epistemology and ways that we think about pedagogies that surround that. Sorry, I just used like 5 really annoying large words, but but he's really good about active learning and just thinking about how we learn. And my point is, you know, like 9/10 of our learning is informal, and that is something that, you know, becoming more aware of that, even though you can have structures for assessment, but thinking about this too in regards to math. You know, once people stop, you know, to think about it as part of our literally our DNA rather than like it's this weird thing. Anyway, I digress, but
I also have the high school one, and Dan has received some copies of this too. I just think he has a lot to say about mathematics, and I think that would move some trends.
Well, and I think, I mean, I just don't want to lose sight of the fact, though, that, I mean, there's a whole, it's not, he doesn't write for mathematics. It's a whole way of teaching and educating students. And so, and in fact, you know, when we asked him about what if not everyone is doing it, is it just in one classroom or this? And he's like, you might as well not do it. So I would just caution putting all into a barrel of math around John Hattie's work if it's not part of the culture of a school and the teachers all together learning about the sort of the principles of it. It can translate into math or reading and social studies, and he's writing books on each one because why not make money off of each content area? But it's really the same principles. And so how we invest in that to get the most out of it is, you know, I worry when we silo and isolate and say we're just going to focus on math, because what we do know about best learning is and students making meaning. I think, Carrie, you were talking a little bit about that and what the workshop you were talking about. When students, particularly with math, need to make meaning out of that, they need to connect it to other pieces in real life. And that, so if we treat math as a subject matter that happens just by itself in the textbook, then they won't get that piece for those students who it's not making meaningful right now. So I hope that that's part of the, you know, the plan as you move into that. It's not just around.
No, he also has the literacy and the social studies, and but I didn't think it might, you know, I didn't think maybe we should give them all those books, but he really has a lot to say about the other subject areas, and you're right, it is integrated and across. I just thought we'd start with this. And
well, it is, to echo what Beth's saying, it's very much, I mean, like a liberal arts interdisciplinary approach, right? And that is the core idea that we don't separate one, you know, that we don't separate these concepts, right? So you can apply math in your social studies around economies, right? And do really simple tasks that show, you know, how economies, right? There's all different types of things. So it is that, I want to echo what Beth's saying, it is that integration that I also think allows students to connect and find their path into that area of knowledge that they may not understand, you know, or they may not have connected with in the way that traditional math has been presented. So even a history of math, like how we got beyond number 10, right? Like there's just some really important things to think about like why people counted, you know. I mean, I digress, but these things, I think when you allow students to engage in it in a way that is outside of the curriculum is super helpful. So I really agree with what Beth is saying.
And I do as well. And those are great insights. And fortunately, the great benefit of particularly working with elementary school teachers is they they teach across contents. They are responsible for all of the core instruction. So I am sure an approach and a methodology and helping students think about their thinking and their learning is all part of it. But I also see, and back to Beth's point of not in isolation in pockets, but as broadly as we could glean some benefit from this and expose as many staff to this as we're able to, whether it be through Benton's Tier 3 identification, but and we have had conversations among our leadership and staff about an interest in looking at these practices, their instructional practices and methodologies. But I think that will be helpful to us. And if I could just add, and thank you to Pat, and retracing this comment about soliciting public input on our use of title funds. We'll do what we did last year. If a person is interested in expressing some recommendation on how we might use these funds, please email Patricia Watts. We'll keep this open till May 15th because at a point very soon we'll need to solidify our budget. So that would be very helpful. Thank you.
And I just want to also mention that besides Benton, Albion and Clinton have also purchased Hattie books, and they are planning to attend this virtual workshop. So the elementary people are on board with looking at different ways of teaching math. And I do hear what you're saying too, Beth, because that's what the workshop model is all about, integrating the various subject areas. So middle school and high school are also good, but we'll see. Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is the calendar for 2020, 2021. And I think we'll all notice that this assumes we go back to a normal, what has been normal in the past, environment of school. So assuming that happens on the expected timeline, this is what our school calendar is proposed to be.
And if I could just add a bit about it, this is nearly a school year in the making. A lot of work and review, what you see before you has come from our Ed Committee, comprised of board, administrators, teachers, members of the public. And we've had some really good conversations. I think Danielle and Kara, Beth also served on the committee, and so did Ray and Judy. And we also solicited the input, particularly of the Teachers Association. And we have a calendar that reflects the TA's input, particularly around, we had great discussion about parent-teacher conferences, and maybe we'll dig into that a little deeper next year. I know we will, philosophically about what that experience will be in the future for children and their families as they interact with the school. But we have a calendar that reflects the 2 fall and spring, 2 evenings, a Wednesday and a Thursday evening, followed by comp day for the teachers the following day. This is a calendar that also bears in mind a common calendar that we work with through the Mid-Maine Technical Center, and keeping those in-service release days as common as possible with the sending schools to that center. So when we have an in-service day where we don't have a seat day for students, and the technical center's running, we don't have our students missing out on their programming. So there's an effort there. So we have 179 seat days with 6 teacher workshop days, and a total of 185 service days for our staff. We have also, and I'm just trying to point out some of the more significant changes. We've moved graduation that is historically or traditionally been within the first week, the first Thursday of June, which has over the past few years put us in a situation where we don't have enough seat days for seniors by statute because there's too much of a gap. There can only be 5 days difference between when the seniors are done and when the regular population is finished. So we have moved graduation to that second Thursday in June and of 21. That'll be June 10th with the last student day on the 16th if no emergency days are used. So those are just some of the changes reflected in this calendar.
Does anyone have any comments or questions about the calendar?
No, I just wanted to say thank you. Since having those discussions in the Education Programs Committee, I think the calendar reflects exactly what the staff members that were there in the Teachers Association wanted. So thank you, Roberta, for working so hard on that.
I have a question. I mean, according to the governor's current guidelines, schools are not supposed to open until September. So, I mean, in theory, wouldn't that delay any end of August school openings?
Right. So right now is we have the first day of kindergarten, and then we have the first day of grades 8, 10, and 12 on the 27th, and the first day for 1 through 6 and 7, 9 on the 26th. Yes, understanding that, not knowing what the environment is going to be once August rolls around. This is something that, as Jenny had mentioned, in place based on the normal operation of our school district. If we need to make modifications to that, for example, a little bit later, I'm going to talk about our plan when we reopen, if we're in a remote format again, and what that's going to mean, and the PD time that we're likely to need at the opening of the year, and maybe perhaps delaying the first start day. But I can't predict what that's going to look like. So we'll go with this and modify it if we need to. And again, this is lined up in our area school districts that attend the technical center have done a similar calendar based on a normal environment. So there are multiple local calendars set like that you can modify if you need to, you as a board, as a body. In fact, we're going to talk about a modification for this year's calendar in a bit.
I guess I just think that we should just bump it up. I mean, shouldn't we just work with the local schools to change it to a September opening? I mean, that's based on the governor's orders that schools aren't supposed to open until September.
I want to echo what Roberta said, because I think that we don't know. Like, I'm looking at this calendar and I'm like, yeah, like it could be this, it could be something else. And it's way, way too early to even, I think, spend any effort making a change for something that you would have to change again. Because like we have to me, we're not going to have a really idea about when school's going to be able to start. Probably until sometime in August, like where we're at then, because the situation is
really clear that she doesn't want schools to open until September.
Well, I don't think that it's, again, she can say that, and I understand what she's saying, but I think the point there is that just like she's hoping certain things can happen in July, it may or may not happen. And everything that this virus that we're living through right now just tells me that we should be careful about how we're planning things, and we need to be flexible. So I'm not sure that I would want to commit people at this time to move something back and Roberta spend all this time moving something back only to then have it be changed once again. It would be better to get much closer and then know what's going to happen rather than saying like we think it's going to happen in September, because we don't even know what's going to happen next freaking week. The virus doesn't have a date or a timeline. It doesn't care about those things. It doesn't care at all. So I don't know, Beth, maybe you have thoughts about that.
I was just going to say, I think that regardless of whether we're in school buildings or not, like school needs to begin. And so setting a calendar when school will begin seems like the best plan we can do right now and deal with it as we get closer. The Department of Education has said that they're going to give guidance about when schools will open and when they won't, so that won't be something we'll have to do. And I think for right now, I am in favor of continuing to educate our children. And I think that should be the plan. And we should start that if they need a summer break, give them the summer break and start that when we would start that next year. And whether we're in buildings or remote or who knows what the situation
I'm
will
not
be.
arguing that our children don't need education. They absolutely do need education. I'm just trying to get ahead of the game. I know that every school is in this situation that lots of schools are looking at when they're going to restart schools based on the governor's order. So
I have to say that I agree with Beth in the calendar right now, because we need a start date for the students if we're in school or not, physically in school or not. I think it's helpful for the teachers and the staff and for the kids to know that this is going to be the start date no matter what that looks like going forward.
I agree. I think just, plan for the worst, hope for the best, but we need to have something in place so that the kids and everybody knows that we can certainly do something to quote unquote start school. And again, I think everybody at this point knows it's fluid, but you can't just hold off making a decision forever based on that.
Yeah. And I do think we need to be mindful of where the calendar takes so much time. I would not want to distract Roberta from having to go back and do something that would then she'd have to maybe go back to do again and again and again, when the better thing is to be thinking about, strategic plans, thinking about the online like working with like all those things that are actually going to make the difference when students come back. That's where we got to put our time and effort in with resources.
Okay. If there is no further discussion, I would accept a motion to approve the 2020-2021 school calendar as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Did you catch that?
I got the moved, I didn't catch the second.
I did the second.
You second, okay. So it has been moved by Danielle and seconded by Kara to approve the 2020-2021 school calendar as presented. Booton,
Yes.
Boyden, yes. Davis Folsom,
Yes.
Dumont,
Yes.
Hussey,
no,
Kinley,
Yes.
Kugelmeyer,
Yes.
Lambert,
Yes.
Reeves,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Williams. Sarah?
Yes,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay, so that is 10, 1, 0. So the motion to approve the 2020-2021 school calendar as presented passes. Under resignations, we have 3. Michael Druin, math teacher, LHS, retirement in June 2020. Hannah Taylor, Benton Elementary teacher, resignation June 2020. And Brittany Brower, English teacher at the junior high school, resignation June 2020. Under appointments, we have 1. Can you tell us a bit about this person?
Yes, Corey Kemp, to fill the position of library media specialist at the senior high school. And this has been a very difficult position to fill. Our previous librarian resigned over last summer, and it remained open and open. And we finally had Dan McCarthy, who had served as a librarian at Lawrence High School several years back, agreed to come out of retirement and help us. So we had an operating library at our senior high school this year, and we thank him. He made a long commute to school and back home every day, and through the winter months. And again, during his retirement, just out of, I think, a big part dedication to wanting to sustain that programming there. So thank you to Dan McCarthy, and we have Corey Kemp, who has been selected by the committee to serve as library media specialist. Her education, she received an early childhood ed and elementary ed from Southern Wesleyan University, and a master's in library media science from East Carolina University. And for the past years, she has served as media coordinator at Hereford, North Carolina Grammar School, and 9 years as a 5th grade teacher in the same community in North Carolina. She and her family are moving back to this area, so we have a certified library media specialist to fill the position.
Yay!
Yay. They are
Welcome.
tough.
Just in time. Just great time to make a move.
All right, so I would entertain a motion to approve Corey Kemp as Lawrence High School librarian for 2020-2021.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Beth and seconded by Kara to approve Corey Kemp as Lawrence High School librarian for 2020. Booton,
Yes.
Boyden, yes. Davis Folsom,
Yes.
Dumont,
Yes.
Hussey, Kinley,
Yes.
Kugelmeyer,
Yes.
Lambert,
Yes.
Reeves,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Williams. Okay, so that is 11-0-0 to approve Corey Kemp as Lawrence High School librarian for 2020-2021. Now we have all of the ed tech and teachers. Do I read all of the names
No, remember we
as presented? Okay, do I
yeah,
say that?
like you can, we made a special amendment, I thought, to say yes, as presented. So you didn't have to read the names.
I mean, I can, it's just,
You can, no, but I thought we made a special, God, I should have looked it up. That we had a special thing that we said, that, yeah.
I don't know the special thing. I'll just read them.
So,
It's okay.
Jenny,
Yes.
hold on. I will state, I make a motion to offer contracts to the following second-year probationary educational technician 2s for the 2021 school year pending budget approval as presented.
Yes, second. That was it. Thank you for your special sauce, Danielle. Yes.
You're welcome.
Okay, so it has been moved by Danielle and seconded by Kara to offer contracts for the following second-year probationary educational technician twos for the 2020-2021 school year pending budget approval as presented. Booton,
Yes.
Boyden, yes. Davis Folsom,
Yes.
Dumont,
Yes.
Hussey,
Yes.
Kinley,
Yes.
Kugelmeyer,
Yes.
Lambert,
Yes.
Reeves,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Williams. Sarah?
Yes.
Thank you. So it passes 11-0-0 to offer contracts to the second year probationary educational technician twos for the 2020-2021 school year as they are identified in the agenda. Danielle, do you want to make
Yeah, I
your?
was like, yeah. I was
Yeah, okay, I wasn't sure. So I make a motion to offer the contracts to the following educational technician twos for the 2021 school year pending budget approval as presented.
Second.
It has been motioned by Danielle and seconded by Kara to offer contracts to the following educational technicians too for the 2020-2021 school year pending budget approval as presented. Booton,
Yes.
Boyden, yes. Davis Folsom,
Yes.
Dumont,
Yes.
Hussey,
Yes.
Kinley,
Yes.
Kugelmeyer,
Yes.
Lambert,
Yes.
Reeves,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
And that motion passes 11-0-0.
Jenny, I make a motion to offer contracts to the following first year probationary teachers to second year probationary teachers for the 2021 school year pending budget approval as presented.
Second.
It has been moved by Danielle and seconded by Kara to offer the following first-year probationary teachers to second-year probationary teachers for the 2020-2021 school year pending budget approval as presented. Any discussion? Sorry, I skipped that before. Seeing none. Booton,
Yes.
Boyden, yes. Davis Folsom,
Yes.
Dumont,
Yes.
Hussey,
Yes.
Kinley,
Yes.
Kugelmeyer,
Yes.
Lambert,
Yes.
Reeves,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
That passes 11-0-0.
All right, here's my magic again. Jenny, I make a motion to offer contracts to the following second year probationary teachers to third year probationary teachers for the 2021 school year pending budget approval.
Second.
As presented,
As presented, yes.
Second as presented.
thank you. It has been motioned by Danielle and seconded by Kara to offer contracts to the following second-year probationary teachers to third-year probationary teachers for the 2020-2021 school year pending budget approval as presented. Any discussion? Seeing none. Booton,
Yes.
Boyden, yes. Davis Folsom,
Yes.
Dumont,
Yes.
Hussey,
Yes.
Kinley,
Yes.
Kugelmeyer,
Yes.
Lambert,
Yes.
Reeves,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
And that motion passes 11-0-0.
I would like to make a motion to offer contracts to the following 3-year probationary teachers to continuing teachers for the 2021 school year, pending budget approval as presented.
Second.
It has been
Madam
motioned.
Chair?
Yes.
I would like to amend that and ask that the chair read these names. This is a unique group in that these people have served their probationary period and they will now get continuing contract status, which means that now they're entitled to just cause if they're to be disciplined or dismissed or terminated. So it's a significant difference, and I think it's important that they be read.
Okay, I can do that.
I'm okay with that, Stu. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Danielle, do you want to amend your motion?
I amend it. I'll actually read the names if that's okay, Jenny.
Yes.
So I make the motion to offer contracts to the following 3-year probationary teachers to continuing teachers for the 2021 school year, pending budget approval for Caroline Bridges, Claire
Cloutier?
Yes, thank you. I'm gonna butcher names. I'm so sorry. Jay Dangler, Michelle Guillard, Tina Canaris, Matthew. Someone help me out, please. Plaisted. Luke Curian, Danielle Sanborn, Isaac Thomas, Erica Turlow, and Christian Wilkins.
I second that.
Okay, it has been moved by Danielle and seconded by Stu to offer contracts to the following 3-year probationary teachers to continuing teachers for the 2020-2021 school year, pending budget approval. Caroline Bridges, Claire Cloutier, Jay Dangler, Michelle Giard, Tina Canaris, Matthew Plaisted, Luke Quirian, Danielle Sanborn, Isaac Thomas, Erica Turlow, and Christian Wilkins. Booton.
Yes.
Oh, any further discussion?
Oh.
No. Booton.
Yes.
Boyden, yes. Davis Folsom.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Dumont.
Yes.
Hussey.
Yes.
Kinley.
Yes.
Kugelmeyer.
Yes.
Lambert.
Yes.
Reeves.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Thank you. So that passes 11-0-0. Sorry, there was a little dinging noise and I didn't know if it was something on my screen that I was supposed to pay attention to. Okay. Danielle?
Sorry. Trying to deal with kids. Sorry. I make a motion to offer contracts to the following continuing teachers to statement for the 2021 school year, pending budget approval. Again, I apologize if I butcher names. Jonathan Fawcett, Megan Perkins, Anna Thomas, Elizabeth Warner.
I second that.
Any discussion? Okay. It has been moved by Danielle and seconded by Stu to offer contracts to the following continuing teachers to statement for 2020-2021 school year, pending budget approval. Jonathan Fawcett, Megan Perkins, Anna Thomas, Elizabeth Werner. Booton.
Yes.
Boyden, yes. Davis Folsom.
Yes.
Dumont.
Yes.
Hussey.
Yes.
Kinley.
Yes.
Kugelmeyer.
Yes.
Lambert.
Yes. Apologies.
Reeves.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Is that a yes, Sarah?
Yes.
Thank you. No, I didn't hear you at first.
My audio is struggling, I think.
Okay, so that is 1100. And then for information, we have the salary statements. There is no action needed. And we have an addendum that was added to that and sent to us for a name that was missing. I can go ahead and read those. Timothy Alberts, Rebecca Anderson, Kara Armstrong.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that we dispense with the reading of the,
Oh,
here's, we've got a salary statement.
thank you.
I second.
Okay, it has been moved by Stu and seconded by Danielle to dispense with the reading of the names included on the salary statement. Any discussion? No. Okay, so Booton,
Yes.
Boyden, yes. Davis Folsom,
Yes.
Dumont,
Yes.
Hussey,
Yes.
Kinley,
Yes.
Kugelmeyer,
Yes.
Lambert,
Yes.
Reeves,
Yes.
White,
yes,
Williams.
Yes.
Thank you. That's 1100. I would have read them all if people wanted. Okay. Do we have any committee reports this evening? No. The superintendent's report.
Right. Well, why don't we start with how I began my day, the conversation I had with the Teachers Association and the leadership of the ed tech groups relating to identifying our last day of school. And that's action that the board is going to need to take. I have been engaged in discussions with area school districts and the broader Kennebec Valley Superintendents Association, we have received guidance from the DOE on how to address this matter. And the idea behind an earlier closure for student day than our regular adopted calendar indicates is that that would allow us some time as a staff to prepare for the transition that's going to need to take place in regard to collecting our thoughts and putting together how we did what we accomplished from the May 13th last day student in session in school buildings to where we're at right now as far as the remote learning format goes. But part of what the guidance come out of the state has been is that we engage in a conversation with stakeholders and collect their thoughts and insights. So anyway, I met with Tim Alberts and Sandra Poulin and Elon Firmage and Monica Town this morning remotely. And we talked about prospectively an earlier closure and the plan that we submitted that will be adopted if it needs to be or submitted to the DOE after we have this evening's board minutes as part of our continuity of education plan and our closure plan allows for this adjustment. And our last seat day without snow days this year would have been June 16th for students. And we are proposing that we end instruction for students on June 5th, which seems to be a common date in the area. And that would provide 5 days the following week, the week of June 8th through June 12th, time for professional development for a transition out of this year and how we might enter next year. And part of that would be planning for a more robust remote learning delivery of our curriculum and our programming. So my recommendation to the board is that we declare June 5th as the last student day. And we work with the staff through that following week. There were other 2 days that would have brought the teaching faculty up to a total of 187. Actually, there was a bit of a flaw in this year's calendar whereby we had teachers scheduled, counting those comp days around parent-teacher conferences, put them up to 185, which is 2 days beyond their bargained time of 185. So June 12th will bring us to the 185. And with that time, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a minute, as far as CARES funding and how we prospectively might use that once we identify our very specific needs, is using that professional development time to prepare students for picking up where we left off when we closed the school buildings on March 13th, looking at where they stand as far as our progress in our curriculum, working with staff on how to better deliver the remote learning format, identifying some form of universal screener for students, and we have begun conversations about that in the areas of reading and math, and considering using the Northwest Evaluation Association tool broadly through the grades as one measure or one screener to give us a benchmark. So those are just some of the general ideas we have as far as how we might use that professional development. Committees have been formed by grade levels. The elementary has a group that is scheduled to meet. I think it's 20 plus people. We'll be meeting actually tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock to begin those conversations. In the junior high, there'll be a similar team meeting in the upcoming week, and the same with the senior high, just to identify where staff believe our needs are and solicit some suggestions, recommendations for how we can transition out of what occurred this year and get students back on track once we reopen in the fall. So I would ask that you consider the 5th as the last student day, and we use the following week in our calendar and our contracted time with our teachers and our techs to aim at professional development. And I do believe we are going to need more than these 5 days. And our intention is to somehow open the year, whether we use some of this relief money to pay for some extra in-service time, or we shift around some dedicated in-service days in the FY21 calendar and maybe bank it earlier in the opening of the school year. We do know that there is a statutory requirement of 175 days minimally, seat days for students. We have 179 built in the calendar. So those are also some considerations. So I don't know if you want to have a discussion about that right now, or take action on that now, or let me move through the rest of the report.
Roberta,
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Stu.
Go ahead, Danielle.
I was going to play devil's advocate for a moment, just as a parent and also as a person who's listened to the TA and some of their concerns about going past Memorial Weekend and how much work will actually be produced by students past that date. Just, again, playing devil's advocate. It's not that I'm against the June 5th end date by any means. That's it. Yeah. I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts. I know that some of the members of the TA have concerns with number of students and participation past that date, especially as weather gets better and if more parents are home with students still at that time, what is that going to look like? Now that's it.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I move that per the Superintendent's Council that we specify that June 5th will be the last student day and that subsequent days will be used as teacher days, professional development days.
Second,
Um, mm, mm. Oh, no.
it's been moved by Stu and seconded by Judy to have the last day of school be June 5th with the following week, the 8th through the 12th group for professional development. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I understand the reasoning for that, and I think, given the extraordinary nature of what we are living through at this time, I don't have a problem with that. But I am wondering what plans we might have for families who may be food insecure, and like, I don't know if that is later on in your report, Roberta. That's fine. I don't want I'm happy to let you go through those report, but I do think this idea also, are we going to offer any summer school? Like what? Yeah. Okay. Because those are things I think before we vote on that, we should have an understanding about how yes, and Beth is nodding, how we're continuing to support these families, that normally would kind of get some support during the summer, what that's going to look like before we vote on it. I'd like to hear more.
And I would just second that. I would ask that we table the motion until the superintendent's report is complete so we can understand the full picture of what we're looking at before we start to vote on bits and pieces.
Okay, we can have the superintendent continue. We don't need a second or anything for a tabling motion.
Very good. So let me just begin with the CARES Act and these funds that will make their way to districts across the state. It's a significant amount of money dedicated to it's the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security, acronym CARES Act. And it is funding aimed at mitigating some of the COVID impact and the closure of our school buildings and the disruption to our educational programming that has resulted in that. So what is going to happen once the feds have released this money to the state? And as I said, it's a significant amount of money. I put my sheet right here. Okay, I apologize. I shuffled too much of this around. So Maine is expected to receive $95.645 million in overall education stabilization funding, of which $43.7 million will be dedicated to K-12 relief funding, distributed across school districts through a formula, the Title I formula. And there are details of that still being worked out, as I understand, and it relates to equitable services, equitable share that you would find in our title applications, and it relates to how much of these funds will be taken from a local educational unit, in this case, so this district, and Patricia Watts had named a couple of those non-publics, one being the Kennebec Montessori School, and the other being the Goodwill Hinckley Glen Stratton Learning Center program. And I think that is one of the details that still needs to be worked out. But the short of it is, it'll be a fairly significant amount of money, and it is intended for one-time use to, as I said, mitigate some of the impact of what the COVID closure has caused us. In this case, the recommendations are, and you can go to the DOE website. There's a great frequently asked questions sheet, and there are multiple notices that have been distributed about preparing school districts on how we might use this money. For example, purchasing hardware. And again, the district has benefited from that, and Beth's work with us in the way of providing laptops. This district recently received an additional 211 laptops, and on their way, I don't think they've all arrived. I haven't seen or noticed that, but 350 access points, because the hardware is not very useful to students in the homes without hotspots and access. And one of the things that we're discovering as the economic crunch and pressure tightens a little bit on families and budgets are some things will fall away. And perhaps one of them might be, say, that subscription to Spectrum that provides your Wi-Fi in your home and your access. So this money is to be spent on hardware and services like that, software, any assistive or adaptive technology that we're finding that students might need. For example, Kira asked about the extended school year programming and how we are serving students with disabilities that are in a whole new circumstance of challenge when they are physically removed from the people who are supporting them. The money can be used for mental health services, and it can be used for professional development. And in particular, the intention is that it's used in part to support the delivery of this remote learning, online virtual learning format that our teaching faculty have learned to, as best they can, deliver on the fly. But clearly, when school opens in the fall and we are still in this environment, we will need to deliver that more effectively and more efficiently. And there are models for that. I mean, where there's virtual learning, there are virtual academies, there are some charters in this state that are delivered in that format. Higher ed uses it, and some of our public schools in this state certainly do as well. But I would suggest that we look into getting more professional development in that area, and likely we'll be using that in those that second week of June for PD. And back to the other thing that I mentioned, and identifying some universal screener for students, identifying where they are at when we suspended the in-person programming and instruction. And the other piece will be all the peripheral assistive devices. Like, for example, I think they're called Neo pens. It was something that was discovered not discovered by her, but shared with us by Laura Reynolds in the junior high school about creating a whiteboard interactive surface that's easily transmitted to a receiver and a student who might be looking for some instruction virtually. So those are just a couple of examples. And back to the committees I mentioned, one of the things that we need to do is solicit from the teachers, the people who are delivering the service, what they identify as their needs, their ideas about how we can better serve students, and also solicit from families how we can improve the delivery, and also have a plan to educate families and students should we find ourselves in this format again. So we're clear about what those expectations are. You know, for example, we've had discussion as we reviewed the COVID closure plan over 2-3 board meetings. Say the number of lessons and this understanding of 2 to 3 lessons a week. And part of understanding how instruction is delivered is realizing that, you know, that's pretty common, that in a classroom, a teacher would not every day put out a new lesson, a new concept totally. It might be more like 2 to 3 that's happening now, but it is, though, as Kara pointed out, those informal interactions, the back and forth conversation between students and teachers, where a lot of the learning occurs informally. So anyway, those are some examples, and I don't have any specifics other than we are looking at NWEA, and we have engaged with them for prospectively lining up some professional development, because it will be important that teachers are able to not just proctor administer the assessment, but use the information effectively. And from there, figuring out how we're going to group kids by need, or offer some sort of intervention in some way, recoup what they need to move forward and be successful for the next academic year. In the secondary, at the high school in particular, where you have a 4x4 block schedule, you have semester courses, you have only 8 weeks for a program, that we look very carefully at how to best utilize the 18 weeks that we have to deliver a particular course to students, given, think about math and the sequencing of math, where there might be some significant gaps, having missed this number of weeks of the curriculum in PACE. So those are some of the uses for the funding, and the caution is that it should not be something that supplants what we have budgeted for. This is one-time money, and it is intended to mitigate the impact of what the COVID closures have caused. ESY, and what that looks like, extended school year for students with some identified disabilities, and in their IEPs, the team has identified the need for ESY programming. When that is not in person, there is it is expensive programming, and there is some federal subsidy for it, but it is going to be more expensive when you are not delivering it in person. And we're going to have to think of creative ways to do that. I know that Amy, our director of special education, is working on that and working with her staff. Also providing training for the educational technicians who are doing this unique kind of work as well. So I would expect the funds are aimed at PD and hardware, and looking at any assistive hardware pieces that will help us facilitate that format. And I would expect that Beth could weigh in on that, or add some more to that. But very generally, we're going to begin with committee meetings starting tomorrow, with teachers soliciting our plan and ideas of our needs. The other piece.
Can I just jump in, Roberta, and just say one thing, because I thought that was quite thorough. The only thing that might be important for us to know too is to think that this money can be used to pay back any expenses that we've incurred since March 13th, I think is the date, 17th. And so if there's things in the budget that we want to reimburse ourselves for, we can use this money for that.
Thank you, Beth. And we have kept track of that and have special coding for that in our expenses and including payroll. So thank you.
But I didn't think that money could be used for payroll. Like, I thought that the CARES stuff could only be used for supply, like anything but payroll related expenses. I don't know, Beth, is that correct? But I mean, this is the challenge, right? Which is the federal monies that have been coming down to, schools and, none to municipalities yet, right? In any substantive way, cannot be used for payroll. Is that correct?
I don't think so. Each grant that has come across so far is different. And right now, the majority of the guidance is very lacking as far as what you can use it for. The largest award that the state has received thus far has said you can use it to cover payroll if someone is doing something substantially different than what they were originally budgeted to do. Or if you're making a hazard pay stipend type award. For instance, that's something that's happening at the Department of Corrections.
Right, yeah.
So there are different components and different times when you can charge salary and benefits, sometimes even salary and benefits that was budgeted if the work being done is substantially different. So it's very specific to each individual grant as to what you can charge.
That's helpful because so but there is, it needs to substantiate. It's not just like, oh, you don't have the money, so you can use it to pay, is what I was getting at. Right?
No, definitely not. A lot of the grants that we've seen are very explicit in that you cannot backfill revenue. It doesn't matter if you.
That's what I wanted to get at. This and that is kind of the challenge moving forward for us, is to get the feds to at least, help understand, the future challenges potentially arising from tax shortfalls, at the state and municipalities, right? I mean, that's what that future money could, people are asking for, but that has not appeared.
Right,
So.
that could be future money, or it could just be an amendment to the money that has already been provided to states and municipalities. There are some parts of the country where municipalities have received funding. There are no municipalities in Maine because none met the population cutoff required in the federal legislation. So the coronavirus relief funds that were provided to states and municipalities, the state did receive a portion. Originally, the guidance was you can use these funds for direct expenses related to COVID-19 incurred between March 1st and December 30th, 2020. You cannot backfill revenues. And that was pretty much the extent of the guidance. They're coming out with a bit more every day. Well, not every day, but they came out with more on the 4th. This was after an initial guidance on the 22nd of April. So what came out on the 4th is now 7 pages of FAQs, which is where the language came in that you can use this to pay for personal services that are substantially different than what you had budgeted them to do. So if you normally are someone who works at Health and Human Services and you do one thing, but now you've been deployed to assist with, I don't know who would be deployed to assist with epidemiology if they weren't in that field anyway. But if something like that occurred, then you could charge for that person's time. But it is very grant specific. Now, if that legislation were amended to allow the state to use the funds that have been received to backfill revenues, that would be very helpful. And that is something that is being lobbied on a national level by a number of organizations, the National Governors Association, National Association of State Budget Officers, the treasurers are lobbying. It's well known. Our delegation in Maine has put forward letters already requesting that it be amended to allow to be used to backfill revenues. At this point, it has not happened, but we keep hearing that it could be coming in the next package.
Yeah, and as a last note, Angus King, I was sent his May 5th letter, to Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer, basically saying like, hey, municipalities over here. It was a very good letter. It was a very compelling letter that he sent. So hopefully there can be some movement on that. So thank you for clarification.
And the other point that you mentioned earlier, your question about nutrition and those services, and those will continue. In fact, the site programming is typically summer programming because during the school day kids are accessing their lunch through cafeteria. But that is why the last student day is important, because that will need to be filed. Dan Chamberlain will need to file that, and that's where we switch off from what we're currently doing to a summer feeding format. And the only thing that will change will be the door-to-door deliveries that actually have grown smaller and smaller in number over time as Dan, working with Scott Washburn, have refined the sites and the visits they are receiving at sites, and just have worked really well to make an efficient delivery system of what we're doing right now. So once that June 5th happens, all of the school sites will still be operating just as they are for food, and that would be breakfast and lunch served to families. One of the requirements that has laxened is in the summer programming, it has been food on site where families would come and access it, but they need to consume the food on site. And that is not required anymore. They can do as they're doing now, to pick up their food and take it with them to their homes. So it'll be this Lawrence Complex, the Benton School, Clinton, Fairfield Primary. Albion School was added this year during this event, and it will remain as a feeding site. And also some of the remote sites, the satellite sites that were established. Trying to think, Tradewinds is one, the Big Apple, I think it's Lutheran Church. I'm not sure. There are two church sites, one in Benton and one in Fairfield, that are also a place where families can pick up the food. So those are going to remain the same. It's just the door-to-door delivery, because that will not be funded in this way once we close school, because the summer program doesn't provide for it. Do you have questions about that, Kara? No? Okay.
No, sorry.
Okay, that's all right. And the other piece I just wanted to update the board on is the work that Dan Bowers and Brian Jones and the staff and the students, the seniors, and the progress they're making with their graduation ceremony event, and trying to choreograph this so that this is ever evolving. But right now, on June 4th, they will have a way that they've worked out, and there's been some guidance that's come out of, or pending guidance for decision making, and then followed by the guidance on high school graduation ceremonies and related activities. The DOE has been very helpful and very specific about, if you go through and look at the priority notices, churning those out, and that's been very helpful. But trying to have a ceremony where you have, say, 140 graduates, and each student has, they intend to allow, like they have now, they give tickets, 6 tickets per student. So a student with their 6 family members will move through this facility in some safe, social distancing way as they orchestrate it and bring them through the auditorium singularly by student and family. The families in the back of the auditorium. And this is just very general. I have pages of the specifications that Dan Bowers has submitted to me. And he is going to have this reviewed by our health professional team to create some form of the ceremony and this rite of passage of graduating. So the student will have their cap and gown. They'll pass across the auditorium stage, which we usually are either out on the football field or in the junior high gymnasium, but family will be in the back. The high school administration, the superintendent will be on the stage, will hand the diploma and move them through. We're hiring a videographer to capture all of this and thread it together. We'll have the speeches recorded. They'll be the same speaking parts, the valedictorian, salutatorian, and the class officer. And we'll have those addresses recorded separately, and they'll make some composite of the event. And, one of the ideas, and this won't be the first school that's floated that out, but maybe have some sort of drive-in projection of the event a day or so after the videographer is able to edit it and compile the video. That they'll likely have the slideshow pieces that they've traditionally done on class night, where you have baby picture and the senior picture side by side. So all those pieces that have, I think, great sentimental value and this powerful emotional impact. It's an emotional thing for families. So credit to the high school for trying to work through this continually to come up with a ceremony that's fitting of the graduates, and they feel like they've, experienced the rite of passage of graduating from high school. So that's my update as far as where we're at. Is the COVID closure is ongoing. Are there questions of me?
Ray has a question. Ray, you're muted.
No, I'm trying to unmute. There, am I unmuted? Roberta, are they also looking at doing something for awards night?
Yes.
Okay.
And I don't know what that's going to look like. Again, all the, Dan's going to put out announcement for, say, the top 10 rank.
Right.
All those things will continue to happen. There'll be, all the scholarships. That's a whole other event, and that those will be announced and students will be recognized in some way. I was just talking about the graduation ceremony, but yeah, there are all sorts of events and festivities surrounding this, and they're important. And the high school certainly recognizes that and wants to make sure that that happens for those students. And again, and the other pieces, the sixth grade awards night, again, that transition from, their elementary schools to joining here at Lawrence is a big deal. And all the elementary principals are working on that special event. And Sean Boynton, principal of the junior high, is working on with a committee what the 8th grade celebration is going to look like for this year. So we understand that it's important to students and families, and it's part of the culmination of the experience of our school district.
I'd like to publicly thank Dan and Brian and the rest of the staff. This is a lot of work to do. It sounds easy with what you just said, but it's not. It requires a lot of different steps, a lot of involvement. And for them to make this like you said, a special day for our seniors, and having them hopefully be able to go through the school and be presented their diploma at the school, is kudos to them for trying to make this happen.
Yeah, kudos, definitely. And, you know, as long, my only thought in the bringing into the school is as long as they feel like they can ensure the health and safety of all, because it's a lot, what Ray was saying, it's a lot of logistics to have that. I mean, and it's not just getting them on stage, it's everybody who has to wait outside and social distance while they're waiting outside, you know, like there's a lot to consider there. And so I think, you know, my only thought as a board member is that that those plans take into as much a consideration as what is happening outside as what is happening inside. And so, and if that can't be met, then you know, what we don't want is a situation in which, you know, we've created a scenario where people are going to get infected, right? Like, because that where all the outbreaks have happened, you know, before they understood what it was at things like, you know, big gatherings, right? And so I think that is an important thing. And I'm not saying that to be a killjoy, because these students deserve that, but we also need to recognize the moment that we're living in. And, you know, that's why I did love the idea of what I heard, you know, nationally about the drive-through, you know, where people were holding their graduations and drive-throughs, you know, so they could have that whole experience together, but they would be in their cars and, you know, that whole way. So that's my only thought around that one is, you know, that there was enough safety and security outside, and then we're not asking staff to uncomfortably enforce, because I think the other thing that, you know, we're seeing now is not everybody takes the social distancing or wearing a mask, you know, seriously. And then you're in a really awkward situation personally if you're going to say something to them, and then what is going to happen if they refuse. Like, those are real things we have to think about with people's safety and asking them to enforce as well. So now that I've, like, you know, rained on that parade, sorry.
No, understood. And those things are all elements of this plan. There will be enforcers out there. There'll be a staging area, and we'll regulate per the guidelines set forth. And again, we didn't launch into this, and you know, it took some convincing among ourselves about, you know, how can we best do this for our kids and do it safely. So, and I believe that June 1st will be that other awards recognition event. More information coming forward, and Dan will communicate that to families well in advance about protocols, and you know, participation is contingent upon these circumstances. So we do take that seriously, for sure.
Does that conclude your report?
There are no more questions. Yes, that concludes my report. Thank you.
So we have a motion on the table. Do we have more discussion that we want to have regarding the motion? If not, does someone want to make a motion to remove the motion from the table?
Jenny,
Madam
I will
Chair,
make a motion. Oh, sorry, Stu, go ahead.
Do we need a motion to remove it from the table? Since
We do, I checked.
okay, time specific doesn't work?
I don't know, but I checked my Robert Rules cheat sheet and it said we needed a motion to remove it from the table.
I will second Danielle's motion if she wants to make it. Thank you.
I am going to make a motion to remove the motion from being tabled. Does that make sense?
Yes. So Danielle has moved and Stu has seconded removing the item from the table. And we don't have to have discussion about that. So Booton.
Yes.
Boyden. yes. Davis Folsom,
Yes.
Dumont,
Yes.
Hussey,
Yes.
Kinley,
Yes.
Kugelmeyer,
Yes.
Lambert,
Yes.
Reeves,
Yes.
White,
yes,
Williams.
Yes.
Okay, so that passes 11-0-0 to remove the item from the table. So we have a motion to change the last day of school to June 5th with the following week used for professional development. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Booton,
Yes.
Boyden, yes. Davis Folsom,
Yes.
Dumont,
Yes.
Flood, nope, Flood's not here. Hussey,
Yes.
Kinley,
Yes.
Kugelmeyer,
Yes.
Lambert,
Yes.
Reeves,
Yes.
White,
yes,
Williams.
Yes.
Okay, and that motion passes 11-0-0. Danielle, did we still need an executive session?
Yes, just to update everyone real quick.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. So I would entertain a motion to go into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA Section 405-6A to discuss contract negotiations.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Danielle and seconded by Stu to go into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA Section 405-6A to discuss contract negotiations. Booton,
Yes.
Boyden, yes. Davis Folsom,
Yes.
Dumont,
Yes.
Flood, nope, not here still. Hussey,
Yes.
Kinley,
Yes.
Kugelmeyer. Lambert,
Yes.
Reeves,
Yes.
White,
yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Okay, 11-0-0. We'll go into executive session at 9:02.